Police brutality toward unarmed African American men is causing an uproar in communities across the nation. Former gangbanger Silky Slim shares his opinions on what it's like to be viewed as a black man by a police officer.
I think police officers feel that blacks are violent just by nature. Some of them, not all of them. I can't speak for everybody, but those that you see get involved with these brutality cases or excessive force cases are individuals that don't have a real connect to the individuals that they're dealing with. Back in the days, you had police officers that actually walked into these communities on feet. So they had a relationship that was based with the individuals that's in the community. These individuals just ride through, and then when they see the amount of violence that's taking place in this community, they become into defense mode, like, hey, I'm not gonna let them kill me. At the end of the day, I wanna make it home to my family, and that's the most important thing to some of these individuals with that mind frame. So they come in prepared to go to war and possibly to deal with what they see as a beast. If you pay attention to what's being said about Michael Brown, Darren Wilson said that I seen a demon. And in order for him to have seen a demon, then he was to have what? Seen a demon before. So when he characterized individuals as demons because they're in an angered state, that's his mindset. So we have to start desensitizing that process and let them know that these are humans that they are dealing with, but the surroundings that they're living in makes them more aggressive than individuals that's in a regular community.
African American history assistant Professor Dr. Kodi Roberts expresses his thoughts on how racial stereotypes could affect the relationship between police officers and black communities.
As long as those members of the community belong to communities that are looked at as violent or undesirable, then the officers get the benefit of the doubt. When they are members of communities that are looked at as vulnerable, then officers are much more likely to come under scrutiny.
Mother Carolyn Zeno shares her personal plea on the importance of police officers understanding and forming a relationship with people in the community.
Someone out of the community needs to go into the police department and teach them about our culture. I think that they don't understand a lot of times about our young black boys and what they're going through. They don't understand what's going on at home, and a lot of times that they're frustrated. You know, I got one young man that I speak to on a daily basis where I try and keep up with him because I'm so afraid that I'm going to get that phone call that he's been killed. But for him to tell me one day that my mom gave up on me at 12 years old. See, they don't understand that. They don't understand the aspect that they're out there hustling to make money because they're trying to live. Well, hustling isn't right, but what other way do they know? But the police don't take the time to understand exactly what's going on with them, you know, like we do.
There's a larger misreading of race bleeding down into law enforcement, and unfortunately leading to the injuring or death of a lot of African Americans who come into conflict with law enforcement.
Religious Studies Assistant Professor Dr. Stephen Finley speaks on the need for an alternative and upright justice system.
This system, while it's working for a lot of folks, is not working for everybody, which is why we have the problems that we have. So we have to totally rethink the system. What that would look like, I don't know. Young folks like you, students, scholars, public policy makers have to get together and try to re-envision this thing as something drastically and dramatically different from what we now have. Because this clearly does not ensure the rights, health, and safety of all American citizens.
African Americans don't like crime any more than anybody else does. And so when you say that you're talking about crime problems, then African Americans don't see a problem with opposing those kinds of policies. What they don't realize is that words like crime become code for black.
If it was my son, which my son did get killed to violence in the streets, if it was my son, I would want him to stand up. I wouldn't want him to be disrespectful, but I would want him to stand up for his rights. And if he's not doing anything, which it's been proven lately that they're killing them anyway, whether they're doing anything or not, but I still would want him to stand up because, you know, it will mean that he died for something. You know, you're not just out there in the streets doing something wrong, but you're doing something right. You walk into the store, just to the store, or you going to your friend's house, just to your friend's house, and the police see you. I see it happening so much when I'm riding down the street where the police is like they just riding around and they looking for young black men as targets where he don't look like he doing that. Let's stop and harass him. You know, I just hate that the way that it's becoming.
Baton Rouge in particular has also expressed its solidarity with the movement through university protests and city marches.
Yesterday we was actually talking about that with a chief of police, and he offered a young black man that's getting ready to graduate from school a job. He said, I don't want to be a cop, because they see cops as being bad. I think that we have to get individuals of color to go into the force with the heart to change what's going on. That means if you see abuse, then you have to be strong enough to actually report that abuse and don't become an abuser. I think that the more that we get into these situations and start changing them ourselves, the better the situation will become. Unfortunately, there are a lot of blacks that say, I don't want to be that, because they see the bad end of it. But there are those individuals that's going into it with the mind frame that this is how change come about.
The way we understand policing now, the way policing functions, induces the kind of problems that we're seeing now all over the country. And indeed in many places in the world. I mean, it helps to create the very violence it claims to want to prevent.
I think justice is in the eye of the beholder. There are a lot of people arguing that the refusal of the grand jury in Ferguson to indict was justice. So that's whether or not people are getting justice depends on what lens you're using to decide what justice is.
People are marching, asking a system to change that is inherently unequal, so that when we are marching, while helpful, we have to realize that the system is deeply entrenched with ideas of patriarchy, capitalism, white supremacy, etc., and that the system doesn't exist beyond that.
Blacks are more likely than others to be arrested in almost every city for nearly every type of crime, ranging from murder to as minor as loitering.
I think it would be hard to claim that the naked aggression that you see associated with segregation in the civil rights movement is equivalent to the problems you see between African Americans and the police now. But again, whether or not it's better or worse to know your enemy is a matter of perspective.
In 2012, black people in Baton Rouge were arrested at a rate more than double that of non-black people, according to a study by U.S. Today.
According to the NAACP, African Americans now constitute nearly 1 million of the total 2.3 million incarcerated population in America.
People across the globe continue to fight for equality that goes beyond race by demanding justice for all. It is unclear what the future may hold, but steps are being made so that all Americans can live freely without fear of those who were appointed to protect and serve our communities.